Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from NASCAR.info. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Coming in at the conclusion of the Ruoff Mortgage 500 at Phoenix, where unofficially, pending, of course, post-race inspection, which cannot be overlooked here, Chase Briscoe has now scored his first ever Cup Series victory, just his second full season of Cup competition at a track where in 2020 he had a dominant season in the Xfinity Series, only to lose a championship to Austin Cindric in the final race. In this very track last November, he was involved in an accident at the mid-stage of the race. The car actually fell off the tow truck hitch as it was getting towed into the garage area. So not a track that we typically would expect Briscoe to break through with his first career victory. But yet, the last few restarts there, getting a great jump on the leaders there. Chase Elliott having a very dominant car in this one. But once Briscoe had a great restart on him to take the top spot there, he was able to kind of maintain that, and no number of the typical late race cautions could change that outcome. So again, congratulations to Chase Briscoe, a driver I feel that people kind of forgot about a little bit last year. I mean, it's not too far in the past that you have to look that, he had kind of more of a rookie season that was more in line with a traditional rookie season, where a driver is kind of figuring out the car, figuring out the tracks, and kind of going through a lot of, challenges along the way, even for a driver who was as dominant as he was with that Stewart-Haas entry in the 2020 season there. Great to see him get the turnaround there at the same time, and certainly an emotional victory for him as well, and getting Stewart-Haas back into victory lane. Who would have thought that coming into this year, the only Stewart-Haas victory that we had last season was with Eric Almirola, and Almirola, again, continuing a great start to the season as well for him, but then the first win out of the SHR bunch this year being the 14, and that we still have to wait a bit longer for Harvick to break through. Harvick trying to get his feet back under him in this race. Didn't quite shake out that way, but was able to keep a record of his own going with the 18th consecutive top 10 finish for him at Phoenix, matching marks that Richard Petty and the late Dale Earnhardt had achieved at different tracks in the past. So no shortage of things to talk about from this race, not the least of which as well to mention Ross Chastain and Tyler Reddick coming very close themselves to their first win. I think after what we saw coming through Las Vegas last week, it seemed like either one of them were going to be the best contenders to actually pull off their first victory. Chastain had his best run last week that he had since the Southern 500 last year with the Ganassi team, where he almost ended the McDonald's curse before Bubba Wallace could at Talladega. But this time around, Chastain had a great run at the end of the race there to kind of climb back into the top five. And Tyler Reddick as well kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. This is a track that I wouldn't have expected him to excel on, much like the larger tracks where you can run the higher line there. But he was very much a factor in this one. I'd be curious to know if he actually ran the same car that he had from the Busch Clash there. It looked like it was the same paint scheme, but of course he dominated that race before the transaxle problem in that event. So it definitely seems like, we already have Briscoe and Cindric, your two Xfinity championship contenders from 2020, having their first victory this season, and now you got Reddick and Chastain coming close. We could be on track to having some more first-time winners this year and probably in the near future at this continuing track. Actually, if memory serves, I think Chastain actually got a top 5 at COTA last year. They could be another one to kind of look at there too. So kind of an interesting race across the board. I mean, certainly the first-time winner. I mean, you can't beat that. The third first-time winner that I can recall at the Phoenix track. You look at the list of winners, and there are a lot of the drivers that you would kind of expect to compete for the championship, certainly with the track now being the championship hosting venue. The likes of Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and then of course you go back to Kevin Harvick and others. You got the occasional bizarre Ryan Newman win in there, but again, more or less kind of a predictable aspect. The first time winners you have to go back to, of course, the late great Alan Kulwicki in 1988, and then Bobby Hamilton as well in 1996, driving for Petty Enterprises, which was at the time the first win for the 43 since 1984. A big accomplishment for them as well. And now you have this situation here with Stewart-Haas this many years later, and the 14 in victory lane for the first time in quite some time. Is this the first time since, I mean, I guess I was about to say Stewart in 2016, but did Boyer pick up anything in that stretch afterwards? I don't think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but it seems like it's been many years since we've seen the 14 get to victory lane there, but certainly a big story on that end too. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens for the championship and in the other races coming up here. Not the least of which being the big venue in Atlanta next week with the reconfigured track. A lot of questions, even if we ran the old cars there. No idea what we're going to be seeing next week. We'll certainly talk about that at the same time here. Thank you as well for Michael Jensen. I saw your super chat there. Thank you for that. Another great race. Question: what percentage would you put the parity on the new car versus qualifying and practice being back? Very good question. I think I would put a larger percentage on the car itself, because I think we're seeing a different group of drivers able to contend for these wins regularly. Guys like Eric Almirola, guys like Chase Briscoe, guys like even Eric Jones, although he's had now back-to-back crashes, he's still been a factor in, more of these races than less of them. We're seeing a different group of drivers come to the front that we don't really typically expect. Guys like, Kyle Larson or Chase Elliott, although Elliott, of course, had a great run today. Guys that seem to be very good in the Gen 6 car are having trouble with this right off the bat. Look at Kyle Busch. Look no further than him. Seemed to really be doing pretty good with the Gen 6 car during that whole time period. And I don't know how much of that is a Toyota thing or how much of that is a Kyle Busch thing or whatever else is going on there. But yeah, I would say that the car is a bigger factor in that. I think practice and qualifying helps. I think practice and qualifying has certainly helped these guys that already have figured out this car or are figuring out the car, figure it out quicker so they don't lose too much ground in the race itself. I mean, how many times have we seen, certainly from these last couple of years when they canceled practice and qualifying, a driver lose so much ground because they had to make adjustments that would have been very easy to pick up in practice and then completely be dropped out of contention. Who knew how well they would have been able to compete? But thankfully, we're seeing less of that, although we saw a little bit of it in yesterday's Xfinity race with Anthony Alfredo, and we'll talk about that for our Xfinity segment here as well. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and this was a race that, frankly, I was expecting it to be a little bit more of a return to normal. Kind of like Las Vegas a little bit last week. I think I mentioned this in last week's show too. But kind of thinking that it was going to be a race where maybe we'd see a more conventional race, maybe things not as crazy. Certainly the nature of the Xfinity race, even though it's a completely different car, kind of seemed to lend credence to that. That maybe it wasn't going to be quite as wild in this Cup race. And the first part of it, with the exception of course, Corey LaJoie's accident, and so forth, and Martin Truex is much later in the race. Seemed like we were going to have a very calm race there for most of it, with Chase Elliott looking very good for most of this event. But then certain things, as usual, the racecraft of the Cup Series has stayed the same. And you got guys that are dropping further back there. Oh, thank you, Jack Garland. I see your comment on there. Yeah, Michigan in 2018 for Boyer. Thank you for mentioning that too. And yeah, Martinsville, Sorinkelstein. Yeah. So yeah, okay, there were a couple other Boyer ones after that there. But yeah, okay, so not quite as long of a drought for the 14 team as we've seen. And of course, Harvick's drought still continuing on so far. But I'm sure that all the SHR folks are taking some real positives from this, given how things played out on that end there too. So that'll be something else to check out. But Briscoe in particular, much like his teammate Almirola, has been consistently fast. I think Briscoe seemed to struggle a bit more in Daytona than Almirola did. Almirola is just really on a roll this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he punched his ticket here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe not tracks that you would typically expect him to excel on, but that really doing well. And then, yeah, Briscoe's thing too. He's been right in it, especially after Fontana. It seemed like he was able to kind of get back in the groove of it. I think we have a lot of drivers that are really able to be contenders, and it's just a matter now at this point if they can keep up that success and kind of get more wins and stage themselves better in the playoffs, or just able to just be as consistent as they need to be. That's going to be kind of interesting to see as well. Trackhouse's team, very impressive. The bold statement that they are no longer underdogs, as we saw of them last year, and even last year they could have very easily scored off some victories there with just the one car, or the 199 car rather, with Suarez's runs at the Bristol Dirt Track, for example there. But this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. So Stewart-Haas's team is going to be happy about this. Trackhouse is going to be happy about this, and Richard Childress Racing. Even though Austin Dillon got involved in that incident on the last lap, both Dillon and Reddick, I think, are going to be real threats to look at, especially once I think Reddick breaks through and gets that first victory. I mean, he is absolutely pounding on the door at this point ever since the Clash and him dominating that event. He is going for broke, I think, trying to get these wins. He very nearly, but he's not going to, do anything too stupid out there. I mean, there was one situation in this race here today where Briscoe came up the track after chasing Chastain down to the apron, and he was trying to get back up in the groove. Reddick could have very easily hooked the 14 into the wall, but actually just gave him just enough room to get the 14 in there and giving him a shot at it there. So, Reddick strikes me as almost like this Johnny Benson's type here that maybe is not going to do anything too dangerous to try to get his first win, wants to do it legit. But we'll see. That's just what I'm seeing so far. And hopefully both those teams are going to be doing very well. Of course, they've been trying to get into the playoffs here, or trying to get both cars into the playoffs these last couple of seasons, especially once Reddick took Hemrick's place there in that 8 car. It seemed like he was really onto something special here. And wouldn't you imagine? Again, another perfect example of why we don't need the Cup guys in the Xfinity series. Look at how well these drivers are able to kind of get that exposure, and we're seeing them actually ready to go out there and race. And maybe they have like one, difficult rookie season to get used to it. I mean, there's a lot of differences, especially now. But then after that first season, they're right in there. Reddick, Briscoe, all those guys. Even Chastain, when he was trying to get that Xfinity deal with Chip Ganassi before the whole DC Solar thing happened. These guys have had really interesting paths to get in there. They've had the experience of winning consistently in the Xfinity series, and now getting up there and actually able to compete. And I think that we're really seeing the fruits of that. I was worried that with this new car coming in, that the rich would just get richer, and we would just see, the same Hendrick dominance in particular that we saw last year, with guys like Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott dominating this, and guys at the Gibbs team like Kyle Busch and Truex and Denny Hamlin doing that. But we have, although those teams are all at various degrees of being competitive or not, some have just straight up had terrible luck, like Denny Hamlin, or just being like, really frustrated with the car, like Kyle Busch. They're still up there. They're not, running 30th every week either. But we're seeing that, that gap has closed quite a bit. And the Chevrolet teams, have really been stepping it up. But I think Ford, even with the adjustments made since Daytona, and certainly after Briscoe's run today, I mean, those power moves through 1 and 2 were very impressive there out of the 14 organization. And, certainly good to see. Good to see for sponsor Mahindra Tractors as well. For those that are a little bit newer to the sport here, Mahindra Tractors have actually been in and out of the sport, sponsoring a number of teams over the years. The one that immediately comes to mind is Robert Richardson's team, which was kind of a backmarker organization in the Xfinity series, ended up being more of a start and park organization in the Cup series at about 2010 to 2012, right before the Gen 6 car came in there. A lot of their races were sponsored by Mahindra Tractors, a lot of red and black paint schemes out there. To see that sponsor in victory lane is kind of a storyline in and of itself at the same time there too. There were other performances where they would get a car into the Daytona 500 and again, maybe be a start and park organization. I think Scott Riggs drove for them a number of times. And they would show up in NASCAR articles there. So even with branding too, I mean, they're much a part of the team as anything, and especially now, it's good to see them being able to enjoy this too. And of course, Mahindra coming into this year with their big ad campaign with Tony Stewart and Chase Briscoe, they already were getting some good returns on that. I think they get the most positive responses of any of the ads that we too often see in these broadcasts. but at least they're making them entertaining and engaging and actually using the drivers in them. I think they're taking some of Slapshoe's advice from his spam video a couple of years ago there, so that's good to see. Hopefully we're going to see a lot more of that. But yeah, have to say again, I got to be impartial here as best I can, although I do have my high point hat over here at the same time. Really happy for Briscoe. This reminds me a lot of like when Elliott Sadler broke through and won his first race at Bristol back in 2001. You have like some of these, you're not saying that some of these drivers aren't nice guys, but when a driver is like an exceedingly cool personality, very popular, and especially in Briscoe's case, where a lot of personal, stories that what he's been, he and his family and has been dealing with over the years has been very public. You certainly can't help but pull for the guy for sure. And that's definitely the case with all of this. And then, of course, matched with just the incredible driving talent. You think back to the 2020 season, one of the few highlights of that year were some of his toe-to-toe battles there, like the one he had with Kyle Busch at Darlington, holding him off there and taking the victory there. Really impressive runs. And it's good to see after, again, the struggles that he had last season to not only show some consistent speed this year, much like Almirola, his teammate, but to actually break through and get a victory before any of his other teammates, I'm sure has far exceeded what their expectations were coming into this. But how exciting is it to see multiple drivers, all of them going for their first win at a non-super speedway where all these guys are just absolutely throwing everything they can at it. I think that's really impressive to see. I think Chastain and Reddick, as I mentioned, are going to be very close to getting their first win, especially if they keep performing as well as they do here. Could happen as soon as next week in Atlanta or, any of these other bizarre tracks that we're going to have coming up here with COTA, the Bristol Dirt Race, Martinsville, I guess, is not too much further from there. It's going to be an interesting stretch, and we're going to find out what goes on with these drivers and with these cars. Now, the other side of this, too, that we have to keep in mind, of course, is with the cars themselves. I think one big concern, certainly for myself coming into this, was how these cars were going to hold up to the regular abuse of diving down to the apron of the track. Of course, a feature of this track since its reconfiguration in 2011, not intended for drivers to dive down there and shortcut the course, but of course is now as regularly featured as ever, with its own graphics package and everything in these broadcasts these days. I predicted that we were going to have probably a lot of mechanical failures, a lot of cars coming in and out of the garage area. Maybe we were going to see situations with teams they were going to have to change the under tray of the car, or if they even could. I'm not sure if they what parts are available or anything on this, but I expected that to be kind of a big issue, even for a short race as this, with just 312 laps. That did not happen in this case. We had, again, very low attrition until very late in the race. But what we did have is we had a very bizarre incident at the beginning of the race there with Corey LaJoie, who ended up being your last place finisher, pending, of course, post-race inspection here. The number 7 car with apparently an issue with right front wheel in one case or another. Haven't been able to hear anything more if it was a brake issue, similar to what took out Riley Herbst in the Xfinity race yesterday, or simply a flat tire or anything else that was going on there. But I do have to say, and I pointed this out on Twitter, that I am concerned about this, is that when the 7 car came down pit road, it had the exact same pattern of damage that we saw on Justin Haley's car back at Daytona. And the conclusion during that was that the wheel had been bolted on improperly, much like Kaz Grala's car earlier in the race. Kaz Grala is actually still having the rim, but the 31, the rim actually destroyed, and just leaving a little bit of a ring that was kind of drug underneath the right front suspension as the car came down pit road. A very similar pattern to what we saw with the 7 car here. Yes, the car did hit the wall, but I'd be very curious in the sequence of events if it was some kind of a failure in the tire or the hub that caused him to actually run into the wall, or if it was something that just was a consequence of him hitting the wall, since we haven't seen too many impacts quite like that. Obviously, Martin Truex had a wreck where the right front had some kind of an issue there, but we didn't see the tire come apart in this exact same manner, where the tire portion of it is actually pretty much intact. It looks like it just got pulled, like sucked right off the rim, but the rim itself is just shattered, where there's like little bits of it that Cody Ware ran over down the back straightaway. Back at Daytona, we were told that, that the 31 did not bolt the tire on properly, or the wheel on properly, and that caused the issue. They basically got the exact same penalty that the number 50 did for that issue. I'm going to be very interested this week to see if that's going to be the same situation for LaJoie, because I think this one here, it's a little bit harder to explain that it was a loose wheel. It seemed to be a bit longer into the run when this incident happened, at least from the competition caution. I believe the competition caution was around lap 25. This incident was around lap 42. So if you're running this that much longer, I imagine if it was a loose wheel, it would have manifested a lot earlier, unless there's some mechanics to this that we're just not seeing here at the same time. So that'll be kind of an interesting situation on that end. But, I don't know. I don't know if there's something going on with that where NASCAR is just going to say, oh, it's just a loose wheel and that's the end of it. I don't know. It's already troubling enough with the other news that we had among the 5 lug nut set, where there was an issue with non-conforming lug nuts on Zane Smith's truck that ended up handing him the last place finish in Las Vegas, only to find out this week that multiple teams are showing boxes of brand new lug nuts, where the issue of missing threads at the top is just a manufacturing issue, that they just have lug nuts coming in that are not having those missing threads, that it's not something the team itself is doing. So on one end or the other, whether it's a mono lug issue or a multiple lug issue, I think there's some mechanics to these rims that NASCAR should look at a little bit more clearly here at the same time. Sean Parks, thank you for asking about the microphone. Hopefully the audio is okay on here. I see the response coming on here. Hopefully we're not having audio issues. But yeah, this is just this is one of those heavy Rode mics here. I got to share the link there at some point or another, but yeah, it's been pretty good for the show here so far. So hopefully we're not having too many issues on that. A little bit different of a one that I use for my my video recordings back behind me here, but that'll be a different story there as well. But back to Corey LaJoie with the last place finish today, pending, of course, post-race inspection. The first last place run for the number 7 in a Cup Series race at Phoenix since Halloween 1993, back when they just had one race at Phoenix a year. Jeff Bodine driving the number 7 car that he acquired from the late Alan Kulwicki that year, had a crash in the early laps and finished in last place in that one. This being in the old turns 1 and 2 complex, the current turns 3 and 4 complex, with things switched around as they are now. So a bit of statistics there on that. And Corey LaJoie himself has finished last at this track before during his frustrating season with TriStar Motorsports, where they seem to have several engine failures, especially in the early part of the season, that I believe that ultimately locked up the last car title for him pretty early in the season. One of those was actually at Phoenix, driving the number 72 car with the Schluter Systems sponsorship on his Chevrolet there. So unfortunately, a challenging track for him. And again, kind of dovetailing with Chase Briscoe pulling off the victory here. A bit of a different scenario there to be expected on that end too. Sounded good. Okay, good. I'm glad that's coming through on this end. Okay. So yeah. So I mean, my goodness, let's where else to even go from here? Chase Briscoe, again, unofficially your winner. Ross Chastain holds off Tyler Reddick for the second spot. Ryan Blaney in the 4th position. This seems to be a track along with the Spring Bristol before it became a dirt race that Blaney always seems to be extremely close to winning, and yet has had just poor results consistently. I think he was a last place finisher for at least one of these. Luckily, this time around, actually getting a decent run, finishing in the 4th spot there. Kurt Busch, once again, charging through the pack in these late laps here, finishing in the 5th spot there. Great run for 23XI's new team. Kevin Harvick right behind him in the 6th spot there. Kyle Busch, despite all of his frustrations in the 18, finishing in the 7th spot. He had some very choice words about how that car was handling during today's race. Daniel Suarez joining his Trackhouse teammate in the top 10, finishing in the 9th spot, bouncing back from his last place run in Las Vegas. And Chris Buescher, again, another driver like Almirola that's been kind of lying in the weeds this year. Of course, won one of the dual races back at Daytona last month. Another driver you really got to keep an eye on here going forward. Almirola talking about his streak of great runs, his 12th place finish. That's actually on the lower side of the runs that we've seen out of him this year. I believe that's his first finish out of the top 10. finishing in the 12th spot just ahead of Denny Hamlin. Chase Elliott was your 11th place finisher, coming back from that late race spin off of turn number 2 there. Didn't damage the car, but unfortunately a run where he had run so strong in that, leading a lot of this, looked like he was going to be able to kind of cruise to the victory there until Briscoe kind of got up there and got by him on that restart. Still ends up salvaging an 11th place finish. Alex Bowman in 14th and Ty Dillon in 15th. Again, Ty Dillon, of course, criticized still for his run in the Busch Clash. He still had some solid runs. This reminds me very much of Fontana there a couple weeks ago with, I believe he was 17th in that one, kind of running by himself. In this case, he actually bounced the thing off the wall in 1 and 2. And I have to say again, I'm out of all the things with the car, I'm very pleased with the ventilation in it. It seems like we're not hearing anything much about the circulation in the cars with the air. I'm sure that's going to be more of a story in the summer. Hopefully we'll hear more updates on that, but also the durability of these cars. They can bounce off the wall, and much like was brought up in the broadcast today, not immediately cut down a tire or immediately crunch a fender on a tire and just get taken out of the race or cause an accident out there. Ty Dillon, I think, was a good indicator of that. Cole Custer, Justin Haley, William Byron, Todd Gilliland in the 19th spot. Great run for him. Not used to seeing the second Front Row Motorsports entry do better than the first one there, especially with McDowell coming back to his home track. I think he got a certification from the local government there coming into the race there, celebrating still his 500 victory from last year. And A.J. Allmendinger in the 20th spot there, just ahead of Austin Dillon after his crash on the last lap. Austin Dillon could have very easily been in the top 10, as he had been for most of the race's second half. Not quite able to bounce back in time there, of course, with the crash in the final corner there coming to the stripe. But A.J. Allmendinger in that 16 car, although I think the paint scheme was kind of appalling on the 16, with the numbers so close to the front and leaving so much open space on it. I think that 16 team is always fascinating to me this year because they always seem to just bounce back from whatever they're dealing with. Not so much of an issue this time around here, but 20th place finish there, still a solid run, given the fact that they were still on the lead lap when so many other drivers were getting lapped in these longer green flag runs during the event. Again, the same team that Daniel Hemrick had to pass through at Daytona, where they had the multiple laps lost at Fontana that they got back after the shifter issue. And then in Las Vegas, Hemrick stove the nose in and had to kind of salvage whatever run he could out of it. So again, 16 team just kind of plugging away, trying to get the best runs they can there, despite some of these other notes. Further back, some other drivers that probably, were a bit more of on the disappointing side here. Brad Keselowski is still trying to get his feet under him there at the Roush Fenway Keselowski effort, finishing in the 23rd spot, well behind Chris Buescher. Harrison Burton got some damage here in the early laps there, finishing in 29th spot. And Cody Ware still getting the 31st place finish, despite the damage in the earlier incident there with Corey LaJoie. So it's good to see that he was able to finish that race under power, just ahead of his teammate Garrett Smithley. BJ McLeod, I thought he was going to end up going to the garage area when they were talking about the fact that one wheel was not driving the 78 car around the track, but he ends up within just a couple laps of Smithley there, finishing in the 33rd spot there. And then, of course, your bottom three, Kyle Larson with a very surprising engine failure. Not used to seeing Hendrick engine failures. Kind of reminds me back in 2002, when not only all four of the Hendrick teammates, but all, I believe, 2 or 3 of the leased engines that they had to MB2 Motorsports all blew engines in that event, and ultimately handed the victory to drivers at other organizations there. But definitely the reason that he fell out, Martin Truex Jr., another driver that, of course, the defending winner of this race, a competitor that you expect to always be a factor at Phoenix, still out of victory lane and clobbering the wall there off of turn number 2. Very scary hit there. As Danica Patrick recalled in the booth there, she had a very similar crash there, I believe in 2012, pounding off the outside wall. I think she had another wreck with like David Gilliland in early 2013 there that kind of stopped her run there too. So she's been unfortunately familiar with that portion of the track there during these incidents there. But only 3 retirements there at the bottom of the field there. BJ McLeod and everybody else staying within just a couple laps of the leader. Of course, Austin Dillon mentioning earlier his spin into the outside wall at the very end there. Yeah, interesting to certainly see at the same time here. Beast of Metal, thank you for your super chat as well. NASCAR is just going to fine Spire and suspend Laurie's crew chief because they want to conceal their knowledge that aluminum isn't a strong enough metal to withstand the physics of being a rim on a race tire. Well, that's certainly a concern. I definitely share the concern, and I hope that this gets treated seriously coming up here. We do have some very demanding tracks where rim failure, if that is the situation, and we haven't really had any concrete evidence of this yet, at least nothing that's been confirmed of it. But circumstantially, it's definitely troubling to see so little of the rim left over at a couple of these races. It's fortunate that both Justin Haley's incident and LaJoie's weren't serious enough that they couldn't drive the cars back to pit road. In both cases, fortunately, they were. But that is something that I think needs to be treated more seriously coming up here in the near future. Certainly in Atlanta, I think that's going to be a racetrack that I think a lot of people are kind of nervous about, and I would share that nervousness for sure. Given Kyle Busch's statements about wondering actively what the track is trying to do by creating pack racing. Now, apparently, they're going to have the double yellow line come into play in Atlanta and keep everybody on what was once the widest track on the circuit, or one of them at least. Now you're going to actually be kind of tying things up there. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a bizarre situation there. Did I say Corey Laurie? I don't know. I bet Corey LaJoie for sure. I saw the comment on that there, Death Killer. Yeah, but the Atlanta situation there, I think next week, we're going to certainly get an eye-opening bit about, the way the physics handle just normal race tires and race rims for the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, starting the double header on Saturday. But then, of course, when we shift back to the aluminum wheels there for Sunday, have no idea how that's going to shake out. But that's going to be an interesting situation on that end. But that's going to be certainly one of the other big stories coming up next week for sure. Let's see here. Thank you everyone for tuning in, by the way. We got 62 people in here. Appreciate you guys checking in. If you have any questions about the action there from the Cup Series race, or just congratulations you'd like to make for Chase Briscoe here, of course, pending post-race inspection. Hopefully we'll hear back from post-race inspection during the show here as well. But Corey LaJoie, again, unofficially your last place finisher. I believe the 9th last place finish of his Cup Series career, his first since Martinsville last spring. You recall, actually, LaJoie actually had a good run going in that one, was actually competing in the top 10 or top 15 in the early laps. Unfortunately, had a pit road incident that damaged his car. Something just went wonky there after that and ended up putting him behind the wall at that point. I'd have to wonder if, we'll have to see how these cars handle Martinsville when we get there, and those very common pit road incidents that you usually see with those close confines out there. Is that going to be a situation that maybe isn't a deal breaker for a lot of these Cup guys trying to stay out there and stay competitive and not end up getting taken out of the race in a rather more anticlimactic manner? But that'll be something interesting there too. Also, the matter of shifting certainly became a big story today. As BJ McLeod mentioned, I tweeted this earlier in the race. BJ McLeod noted that Bubba Wallace, who finished the first car one lap down in the 22nd spot, was the only driver that he noticed was actually shifting gears around the Phoenix track, at least in the early laps. Combined with the drivers not willing as much to go to the apron versus Kyle Busch, who of course did it at the very beginning of the race. There's still some tools for these drivers and teams to play with, and they're trying to kind of figure that out. That's going to be interesting to see in these coming weeks, and if it's going to be a factor at tracks that perhaps you don't expect it to. Phoenix, I think, would certainly qualify as one of those. I mean, historically, of course, road courses and Pocono being kind of tracks where shifting under green flag conditions would be something that would come up more often. If we're going to see that more complicated or just more prevalent, that's going to be kind of interesting. But I was interested in that it came down to a matter of strategy, and that again, of the top contenders that were lapping the 78 early on, he noticed that being a clear difference with the 23 at that same point there. So interesting how that kind of shook out. Let's see. Buick and Chevrolet wins at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Jeffrey, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be interesting to see where this this kind of headlights or this kind of strategy kind of comes into play here from one race to the next. But that's going to be that'll be something. That'll be something for sure. If you got a history of other manufacturers coming in there. Atlanta, I guess, had the first Toyota win. Now that I think about it, that was Kyle Busch in 2008. But again, a very different configuration. I don't know who it's going to favor. I think the odds are wide open. Is this going to shift everything back to contenders that were really good at the Gen 6 car, your Kyle Larsons, your Chase Elliott's, your Martin Truex's, or is it going to keep going the same direction it's already been going, where guys like Almirola, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, are they going to be able to be a big factor in that or not? I don't know. I don't know any more than you guys do when it comes to this particular track's reconfiguration and how that's going to handle. But we'll certainly be talking about that on next week's show. And we'll certainly see how that shakes out. We'll jump into the Xfinity Series race here as well. A comparatively placid race, except for the opening stages. I apologize, I didn't catch up at the beginning of that event there. We were grabbing lunch there, and we had kind of some reservations that took a bit longer to get back there. But it was okay. It turned out that this was a perfect race to miss the start of it, because the last place battle began before the race even took the green flag. Anthony Alfredo in the Dude Wipes car for Our Motorsports, the 23 car. We've talked a lot on this show at how that team has kind of been the kingmaker. It certainly was last year, no matter who was driving it. Even Natalie Decker getting a decent run out of it in Martinsville. Anthony Alfredo getting into that car full-time this year. They had all kinds of issues with the drivetrain. They ended up missing both practice and qualifying after switching out both the transmission and the rear end. They get the car back out on the grid. They're ready to go to start the race. Alfredo is all suited up. And then the transmission, the clutch doesn't engage. And so you got an issue where you can't get the car even off pit road. Very nearly was joined by the pole sitter of the race there with apparent throttle issue, or the throttle stop. The kill switch on the steering wheel required a switch of the steering wheel. So some quick effort by the Joe Gibbs Racing crew to get him back on track and actually retain his pole position there. As for the 23 team, they got pushed behind the wall at the turn 3 entrance, actually a little bit further up. They actually had to use kind of the walking path there to get the car back to the Xfinity Series garage, which is quite a long ways to actually push it. That's back all the way back on the straightaway there, and his stall was actually on the in the corners. So that took a long time to get there. End up spinning the entirety of stage 1, getting the clutch replaced before getting him back out there. By that point, Riley Herbst had been in an incident where his brakes had failed, tagged the outside wall. Good to see him get out of the car, although he looked to be getting out of the car rather gingerly after that. You could certainly not blame him after a driver's side impact at any track, but certainly at a bank track there where you got to be so heavy on the brakes going into that corner. It was a scary situation there, tore up the car pretty good. But thankful that, at least from the indications that were shown, him being, of course, checked and released from the infield care center, that Riley was okay. But the 98 car knocked out of the race, and once Alfredo got back on track, was able to complete the race, actually under power. It was indicated that he lost a couple more laps, seeming to show that he had actually parked the car once he couldn't actually catch Parker Retzlaff's car in the final laps. But the 23 actually finished under power. I guess they had must have had a late race pit stop there that dropped him another 3 laps down. Ended up completing 147 laps on the day. Retzlaff, though, was again a great story on that one. On that end, qualifying in the 6th spot for RSS Racing in his first ever Xfinity start. Again, a lot of new talent that we're seeing in that division too. Him, along with I believe it was Nick Sanchez, making their debut in the Xfinity race back on Saturday. Sanchez finishing in the 26th spot there for BJ McLeod's effort. So that was certainly good to see. But Retzlaff, unfortunately, a fuel pump issue, the same issue that the New York Racing Team has faced earlier this year, both at Daytona and Las Vegas with Greg Biffle. Ultimately felled the 38 car there. Josh Williams in the 35th spot. Jeffrey Earnhardt passed by Kaz Gralla in the final seconds of the race. I believe even on the final lap, it seemed like, from the race results there. Dropping Earnhardt into the bottom 5. driving his first start for Emmerling Gase Motorsports. Of course, we're more used to seeing him drive for Sam Hunt Racing, as he had back at Fontana earlier this year, where he had kind of an up and down day itself there too. Good to see Eric Esteps out of the groove site there on the side of another car again. This time bringing the Ghost group on there. So good to see other musical acts not banned from the sport there as being sponsors. Of course, with the Slayer paint scheme that NASCAR stepped in on for Rick Ware's team a couple of years ago at Bristol. It's good to see that was not as strictly enforced this time around on this one. I mean, I got fonder memories also of like the Poison paint job that Derek Cope had back in 2002, where he was like selling lug nuts off that car afterwards. So that was pretty hip. But a distinctive paint scheme for the number 4 car, finishing in the 20th spot, just ahead of Stephen Parsons. So a good run out of him there. But of course, Noah Gragson being your winner of that race, passing Brandon Jones in the final laps to pull off the victory and utterly tearing up the rear end of his car there, leaving flaming chunks of the rear tires there onto the track. But Gragson in a much more dominant and less chaotic race than what we saw earlier today, still pulling off the victory there. Jones in the second spot, Josh Berry in third, Trevor Bayne finishing in the 4th spot there, backing up his top 5 from Fontana. And John Hunter Nemechek, probably one of the other smaller team stories there. Obviously, they were certainly helped by running Toyotas and Joe Gibbs Racing equipment. Not to mention John Hunter himself being one heck of a wheelman in the Truck Series and even his infrequent Xfinity Series starts. But it's hard to get too critical with these different technical alliances, because even Josh Riam's team had a Joe Gibbs Racing crew member on hand when they were trying to get into the race at Fontana. So there's support in one degree or another. I do think it's a little bit more satisfying when maybe it isn't with the best driver and the best equipment at the same time. But still can't ignore the fact that I'm sure it was a huge thrill for the Sam Hunt effort to take the lead at the halfway point under green with Nemechek and actually leading those 11 laps of the race before getting a top 5. John Hunter actually had a 3rd place run at Richmond last year for the Sam Hunt effort. So again, another team that you could probably look at in maybe the near future to try to pull off a victory there. There's certainly a hard-working bunch out there, and definitely want to give a shout-out to them. Landon Castle as well continues to bounce back from the Fontana last-place run, nearly getting a top 5 at Vegas, finishes 9th at Phoenix this time around, so that was certainly good to see. Ryan Sieg had probably his best run of the year. Looked like he was going to have probably a top 5 car in the early stages there. Ends up slipping back to the 11th spot at the end. Jeb Burton, Brandon Brown, Sheldon Creed, and Brett Moffitt rounding out your top 15. Ryan Ellis, very pleased with the 16th place finish for the Alpha Prime effort there. That's 2 starts for him now that have been both top 20 finishes, which is fantastic for him. And other organizations trying to get some good runs out there too. But that was certainly good to see. Yeah, lots of great stories throughout the field there. We'll have to certainly see. Brandon Brown's got a new sponsor coming up on the 68 next week with that energy drink sponsor that he's got on board. So that's going to be one to kind of look forward to. So that was interesting to see there too. At the other end of the field, of course, we talked a bit about the Josh Riam effort. Unfortunately, that team still is waiting to make their first Xfinity start. They actually withdrew from the Las Vegas race. Loris Hesmans climbed aboard the 33. I thought he was going to have a good shot at qualifying for that race, but apparently some issues with that. I still need to get the straight story on that. When I first heard about it, apparently I heard it that David Starr spun in front of him, but I'm not sure that's what the situation was, because Starr was actually able to qualify for the race, which is a big turnaround for the 08 team this year. But must have been Hesmans that spun, because he ends up in the 40th spot there and out of the field, joining Jesse Little, Stan Mullis, and Brennan Poole on the DNQ list there. But an unfortunate deal for them. Hopefully the 33 car can get into a race here in the near future. But it's a difficult hole to dig out of when you're now, 4 races into the year and you still haven't started one yet. This is going to be the same issue that's going to be facing Jesse Iwuji's team Certainly had high hopes coming into this year with the 34 car, the Emmett Smith partnership, bringing other sponsors on board there. But even with a late driver change, getting Jesse Little in the car, Jesse Little actually your last place finisher, I believe, in this Xfinity race last year. Unfortunately, not quite able to get the 34 in the show there. Engine issues returning for Mike Harmon Racing. 47 car still missing the show here. The Lerner and Rose sponsorship. That was too bad too, because Bailey Curry had actually had a good run in this car for the team last year. I mean, obviously good to see Curry in the field in the 4 car with the Ghost machine. But the 47 still missing the cut there. They got some other stuff to kind of work on for their next round in Atlanta. And with the high speeds that are certain to be the case over at the Atlanta track, even with the different rules in place for the Cup Series, approaching it more as a super speedway, I think they got kind of their work cut out for them with the 47 team this past week here too. So the DNQ list and the entry list, we'll be going over that later this week for our weekly entry list storylines feature, and that'll certainly be another thing to talk about as we kind of get up there as well. Whoop. The chat box on the screen keeps deleting anything I write with a less than symbol. I don't know what's going on with that. I didn't set anything like that. So I apologize if you're getting stuff that's deleted there. I haven't really had any chance to kind of check that. Yeah, I got to check the settings on this. Usually it seems like it posts everything on here. I got the live chat pulled up on here. Yeah, it seems like it's more or less synced up. I know it just has a couple of them on there, but we keep the box kind of small on this. Star left the pits early and spun out while Hessemans was on track for his qualifying lap. Okay, it wasn't Hessemans that spun. Okay, goodness. Well, that's a terrible break. I mean, Star, I don't know. Okay, well, I don't know how Star still qualified for the car. That's kind of an interesting exchange. But again, both those teams, the 08 and the 33, have kind of been really struggling in qualifying this year. That's going to be kind of another story to follow in the weeks ahead here. For Riley Herbst, your last place finisher in the Xfinity Series, his second career last place finish, his first since Las Vegas last year. That was a spring race, so almost exactly, actually, I guess a little over a year, rather, since his most recent last place run on that one. Yeah, March 6th to March 5th? Is that 5th there? No, 12th. On that one. Yeah, because the 12th, 11th was Friday. So there you go. But no, kind of a little bit of everything on the weekend there. So you had some pre-race last place battles going on pit road, and then in today's race over quite suddenly with the Corey LaJoie incident there. But we'll certainly find out what happens there. They both got to go again later in qualifying, did they? Okay, I was not clear on that either. So I'm glad that NASCAR worked that out. It's unfortunate that they had a miscommunication there, but I think Phoenix is a really tricky pit road because, of course, obviously on the restarts, you have the issue of trying to get back to that entrance that's, just coming off of turn 2. And you got to follow that all the way around to the dog leg. I know at truck qualifying, it was a little bit hard to keep track of who was on which lap, just standing there in the infield, seeing what was going on. But I guess on the officials' side, they got those same issues at the same time. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. So, what we have here at the same time. I guess this week, I'm trying to remember since last week. Oh, yeah, last week I did post the second episode of the NASCAR broadcast issues thing. This was the sequel that talked much more about the unenthusiastic broadcast calls. So we saw a little bit of that this weekend. I actually received a couple comments on that on Twitter this weekend. Certainly on the Xfinity side, I thought that when Noah Gragson made the winning pass on Brandon Jones, I thought that just came and went from the Adam Alexander let booth. I thought that was kind of lame. And then the NASCAR broadcast in general, they're still doing the thing where they kind of take a side off there and just talk about things other than the play-by-play. Saw that out of both races this weekend, especially on the Xfinity Series side, after rewatching the start of that event there. These are things that that can be worked on. I'm certainly not expecting things to change immediately here, but I think that I think the crowd that was maybe more critical of those videos immediately are seeing a little bit more evidence of these things coming forward. There are other episodes of that planned, but they're not going to be. It's not going to be a block of time where that's going to be the only thing I'm going to be posting. Actually, as a matter of fact, this weekend I actually was kind of working on another video here. I'm still working on trying to get interviews for the next driver profile and next rise of the field fillers, but I found another project that I'm working on that may be kind of more of a long form piece, and I'm going to kind of get some more research together on that. So that's kind of one thing I've been working on here too. At the same time, I'm wearing the JD McDuffie reissued shirt here today, as I do expect, hopefully, this week to get the JD McDuffie book back available on Amazon. The latest proof should be in the mail this week, which should have the reflect the changes in the pictures there to make sure the pictures come out a lot clearer, so it actually looks more like the pictures came out in the Waldorf printing of it there. But we'll get that back on there very soon. You guys can check that out there. If you haven't been able to pick up a copy of it, you'll certainly have a chance there. Or if you're just interested in the second edition, you'll also have the option of that. But in the meantime, of course, the audiobook is already available on Amazon, and you can check that out certainly as well. At the same time, I did get a couple of requests, especially back during the Fontana weekend, about NASCAR hats, just like the one I have on right here. I have put up a listing on my eBay page there for that. So right now I'm selling those for $40, which I know is kind of on the higher end there. Pretty much selling those for at cost. The person that I work with here in town that does the embroidery work, he does the embroidery for about $20 a hat. It's about $15 a hat that I've been able to find these particular hats online, and the rest going to shipping there from there. So that's how that kind of came together. Hopefully, if I can find a way to kind of save money on one aspect or another, or if it becomes necessary to order a larger number of them, I can revisit that there. But that's kind of where that's sitting at the moment. I only had a request for maybe one or two of them here at the moment. And I certainly don't want to order ones that aren't in people's sizes either. So they're pretty much being made to order there. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'm just kind of setting it there as a page so that people can check it out that way. And that's something there. But of course, if you're looking for like bumper stickers and stuff like that, I still have that set up there. And thank you again to those of you in the Patreon. Hoping to get some more content for you guys as well. Of course, advanced access to the videos, including these NASCAR broadcast selections and these other videos that I'm working on at the same time. They're hoping to get some more content coming up here, especially as now we have a bit of a gap between now and the next planned trackside coverage, which is going to be Sears Point in middle of June. So that's going to be definitely exciting here at the same time. At the same note, I want to kind of also mention this too. I mentioned Slap Shoes a little bit earlier. I have watched his latest video on Alan Kowicki, and a very interesting one there. I definitely recommend checking that out after the show here tonight if you haven't checked it out yet. I think he makes a very interesting argument about the plight of owner-drivers, or the reemergence of them in the aftermath of Alan Kowicki's championship and the conclusion of his career. I won't give too much of it away on here. I kind of want, it just came out this morning, so I'm sure not everybody has had a chance to see that yet, but definitely recommend checking that out on his channel. So that's definitely there as well. So I think I kind of fire blasted through most of the Cup Series and Xfinity Series discussion that I had on here. Again, any other discussions you guys, or any other questions you guys have at the same time, definitely don't hesitate to let me know here in the chat. We'll probably jump into our trivia segment here and kind of do that on this. Oh, wow, we're already up to an hour anyway. Yeah, so we kind of gone through that there too. Yeah, but definitely check that out at the same time here. So we'll get into our trivia segment here. Whoop. We'll bring out the old 1990s NASCAR Trivial Pursuit deal. Let's go ahead and read off the categories for you guys, especially for those of you who are new in here. Categories again are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So go ahead and mention in the comments which ones you would, which comment, which strategy, or I'm all tangled up here, which category you would rather I start with here. We get the right word eventually here. And we'll get that going for you guys here very soon. And yes, so yeah, so we'll get that going here in the meantime. So one thing I haven't talked about here on the show here tonight, of course, there was certainly tragic news earlier this week with the loss of Steven Stotts in the truck accident there with David Gilliland Racing in Texas. An emotional victory for Taylor Gray, pulling off the victory on Friday night in the ARCA West Series race there. A congratulations to that team. Certainly pulling for the family of Mr. Stotts, as well as the other people that were involved in that as well. But that was certainly a big story on that too. Another person I want to give a personal shout out to on the show here as well is to Vincent Delforge, also known as NASCAR VD, is a great statistician in this sport here. I understand that he's going through some very serious health issues here at the moment, and certainly pulling for him as well. So definitely wanted to make sure to mention both of them as well on the show here tonight. So as we get going into our trivia segment here, certainly, a mix of news this past week. I saw the question here about the team Stange effort, the one with Tarso Marks. Oh, good. Actually, I'm glad I remembered the guy's name. Tarso Marks coming into the Cup Series, including a couple races that I'm looking to cover here between the Las Vegas race this fall and as well as the Phoenix finale later this year. I certainly would be excited to see the 79 back out there. It's not a number you typically expect to see out there that much. Their most recent last place finish in 2012, back when Archie St. Hilaire had his own Cup Series program before getting involved in the 32. Actually ran the 79 car back in 2012 and had some runs out there. And I think Reed Sorensen, somebody pointed out, was most recent driver to try to qualify a 79 car into a race earlier. This is the kind of thing that I'm trying to satisfy my own curiosity with the next gen car, is that hopefully it's going to fill that void of not having any open teams out there, that hopefully we're going to have fewer races like we saw this week, where there's only 36 chartered guys out there, that maybe you are going to see a group of maybe 4 or hopefully more, maybe 5, 6, 7 open teams out there trying to compete for those last few spots, and maybe get some of these local guys out there knowing that they can just buy up a car and try to get whatever backing they can get and pull a car back out there. I think the Tarso Marks thing is fantastic. I wish him only the best of luck. Welcome to the show, like I say, with any of these other guys, whether it's the Floyd Mayweather team or New York Racing or any of these other programs that have been either in and out of the sport or brand new in the organization. I think that's great for them, and I certainly think that would be something that we're gonna look forward to seeing. And that's going to be another exciting thing to kind of get your heads up on too. I also want to kind of give a mention here to the folks over at the JD McDuffie fan group there, Linda McDuffie and Wendy McDuffie, doing a lot of great work over there, kind of getting some more information together, and also reissuing a lot of the old shirts, much like this one here as well. They actually just recently this week reissued the old crew shirts, a little bit different than the old fan club shirts, like the picture I shared on Twitter earlier this week. You can check that out. But I like the inspiration with the circle on the back, very much like the fan club, actually showing JD McDuffie Racing Crew with the iconic number 70. I like that they did it in burgundy and the blue, kind of two of the more iconic colors that he ran a lot of his last cars in the later part of his career, the late 80s and early 90s. So if you're interested in some JD McDuffie stuff, Jam Printing is the name of the website. I believe the link is on my Twitter as well, so you can definitely check that out. So that was good to see. Team Stange was in the 2019 Indy 500, were they? Okay, see, again, I'm not as familiar with open wheel teams, but this would be their first foray into the Cup Series, right? This would be something completely different on that one. I understand that they had something with like the lower divisions, like ARCA or something before, but either way, yeah, if you're coming in and out of the tracks or in and out of the sport and trying to make a name for yourself, I think that's great to see. So hopefully that'll be the situation there too. Beast of Metal, thank you for the super chat there too. I'm going to go on a long rant about the Alex Bowman question, but I kind of want to hear your thoughts first. Also, a mild card. Okay, looking for the picks there for the wild card. Yeah, thank you for keeping track of the votes there. We'll get to our first trivia question here pretty soon here, and we'll see which one is the leading category on this one here too. The Alex Bowman question. If we're talking about the Alex Bowman question as to is he a hack? Is he backing into wins? Is he not deserving these wins? I think we probably talked about this on last week's show, but the dude's got skills. I mean, to even be within a breath of trying to take any of these victories, especially the level of talent that's there now between a lot of the established drivers and the rising talent that has now been able to make a name for themselves literally in the Xfinity series now without the Cup guys meddling in there. If you're able to get even to second place, you've had a heck of a show. We talked about this with Chastain and Tyler Reddick and guys like that. But, I think with Bowman, these are not easy tracks that he's pulling off the victories there. Places like Richmond typically do not have late race passes for the lead, and yet he did that last year. Places like Dover, where he had to beat no fewer than his own teammates in that top four sweep, was very impressive. At Martinsville, where, yes, he spun out Denny Hamlin, but you had to catch Denny Hamlin before you can spin him, and Denny Hamlin himself is really not one to talk, given his own situations with Chase Elliott in the past, about doing what you have to do to route somebody to get that win, and NASCAR themselves putting everybody in a box there with this track being the cutoff race into the championship. Of course, everybody's gonna be driving over their heads. That'd be silly not to. No, I think when the guy makes a habit out of it, when he's constantly up there and able to capitalize on it, I think that speaks less to Bowman being whatever pejorative you want to label on him, and more to the quality of the drivers that are letting him get the win. How about that? How about these guys know that this guy is a snake in the grass and he can pull a David Pearson on anybody here and pull off a victory? How about you keep him from beating you? How about you hold him off? How about you work your strategy better? How about you just do better? I don't like this culture of just blaming the guy for winning. What the heck is that about? Sometimes this happens when you have a driver that wins too much. I mean, that happens too. But if a guy wins a certain way and kind of gets up in there, he may end up beating your favorite driver, but dang it, man, your favorite driver should have held him off. This is coming from a guy who watched a Bills game where they lost it the last 13 seconds. They should have held them off. I could be critical of it's like, hey, I mean, why were they able to pull that off? It's a competition. I think sometimes we forget that. I don't like the idea that, something is supposed to be meant for somebody. Oh, this guy led all the laps, so he's meant to win this. No. If you don't, the wonderful thing in racing is if you don't reach the finish line, the gods favor some, the odds favor some, the gods favor others, whatever Darrell Waltripism you want to apply to that. I think with Bowman, I think he may win these races in the way that he does, but I mean, again, Kevin Harvick did it back in 2011, whether it was the Martinsville race against Junior or the Fontana race against Johnson. Some drivers, they just end up having, that kind of trend, and Bowman just happens to be that guy now. It'll be somebody else 5 years from now. It'll be somebody else 5 years after that. That's just kind of the way it goes. Or maybe it'll be Bowman during both still, but I don't know. But, yeah, but if he has good luck, I mean, heck, I think that should be something to be envied. And it's certainly playing perfect head games with the folks over at Joe Gibbs. They need to kind of look inward here, especially guys like Denny Hamlin, where they're further back in the standings here. And you're going to have people, in the media saying, oh, what's going on? What's going on? You're going to have to kind of turn things around at some point. Luckily, we're living in an era now where you could be absolute garbage for 25 races, win the 26th race, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, he's back. He's going to storm his way to the championship. And you can do that. I mean, it's not the preferred way to go. You probably don't want to do that. But that is what it is. So that's a different situation there. Frank, yeah, I saw your comment on Danica. I thought that was interesting. I liked, again, I'm not disliking Danica in the booth. I think that, I think her IndyCar perception of things is, it's not meant to be intrusive. I don't think I haven't felt distracted by it, by her saying like, oh, well, IndyCar does this and NASCAR does that. And it's like, well, that could be kind of instructive. I mean, it's as much as I don't like a complete departure from a strict play-by-play, I mean, that's more Mike Joy's role in it. I mean, if he's able to keep that going, that's kind of his thing, and he can kind of keep that going. But, I think as long as it's like, if it's a brief detour and not like, 2 laps into the race and saying like, okay, well, the green flag's out. Well, in IndyCar, we do this. And it's like, no, stop. Don't do that. Like, I didn't sense it was like that problem. So that's kind of that situation. One thing I thought was really, I was actually kind of pleased with Danica is she almost kind of was like the student in that sense. She was almost like representative of somebody that's maybe not as familiar with the sport, which is strange given the fact that, of course, she's been a Cup Series driver for so many years and experienced it firsthand. But I liked when Mike Joy gave it kind of a cursory description of the Polish victory lap with Alan Kulwicki, that she kind of encouraged him to tell the rest of the story. And that was kind of neat. I think with NASCAR history, I think it's a more welcome departure than just saying like, oh, what's happening here? And this is what the draft is doing. And this is what this is. And this is, just stuff that's not interesting. If the thing's interesting, that's one thing. But I think with NASCAR history, it's a bit more palatable because it's easier to relate to what's happening on the track. That like Ken Squire would do this, where he'd say like, they're going through turn 3 where, David Pearson and Richard Petty locked fenders in 76. It's like that. It's that kind of thing. But I'm tipping my hand a little bit with the IndyCar stuff there because it is unique to Danica from that aspect. I still think it is a bit distracting from the play-by-play and it's kind of unnecessary, but I don't know. It's not quite as obnoxious. I think it's more of an issue from people that are within NASCAR and raised with it much more, because they shouldn't be the ones that are distracted by what's happening. They should be the most engaged by what's happening. I can almost excuse Danica for not being as engaged because she's still kind of trying to understand it differently. So I don't know. It's a difficult situation. And it's something I'm still grappling with and doing these videos on the critiques on the broadcast. I have kind of a couple ideas of what the 3rd episode should be, but I think I'm going to polish that a little bit more before I finally get that one up there. So I don't know. And then Jeff Gordon coming back in the booth next week in Atlanta. I mean, I don't know. I think Gordon probably is best to just kind of focus on what he does at Hendrick and keeping that team heading the right direction. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be kind of the different situation there. Which category was the leader, Beast Metal? Let's see, I know we've kind of strayed a bit far from that there too. Are we looking here? Yeah, well, yeah, leaving out Ricky Rudd. I mean, see, again, you could make an entire segment. You could show footage. You could do a whole thing from that. I think if you're just doing a cursory mention of just Kulwicki and just the Polish victory lap, you could be probably forgiven that you didn't go play by play into the entire race from that, because then, all of a sudden, that becomes a whole other thing. You could put that in the pre-race. Oh gosh, do we have to talk about the pre-race too? We can talk about that. This is the first pre-race that I've actually watched probably in months. I usually just skip it altogether and just do the green flag time like a lot of you guys do. But I pulled it up a little bit earlier. I think with a time change, it made it a bit easier to do that. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the Bob Pockrass thing. I have to admit, I kind of chuckled at that because I think Pockrass is really kind of coming into his own there at Fox. I'm happy for him because the dude works his absolute ass off to do what he does in the booth. And it's good to see him actually get, some respect for what he does, especially since he was kind of unceremoniously ditched by his previous employer. I think people that work the garage and get those stories firsthand, I mean, my empathy is going to be much more towards them because I think they're doing the most important, information out there. So that was cool. And I could forgive, just some ridiculous segment that you kind of isolate in the pre-race segment that everybody could just ignore and just kind of tune in for the national anthem and just be started from there. But yeah, I mean, some of the graphics and stuff, like that whole party graphic, I mean, that was just ridiculous. Like what, when I see stuff like that, that's more like, look at all the effort that was put into this. Look at all the effort. Somebody took time to put all that together when they could have been doing something else. Like the Bob Pockrass thing, that was just them screwing around. I think they probably spent 5 minutes on that, and they probably just had Pockrass just play along with it, and that's fine. That reminds me much more of like an old ESPN sketch where they're just kind of messing around, or they'll like have the drivers play off each other, which I think is more engaging personally. I think this cult of personality for the broadcasters is probably less engaging for viewers, especially newcomers who don't know who the heck any of these people are. But yeah, if it's something that takes like a lot of effort, or at least a lot of time, maybe effort isn't the best description for the dance party thing. It's like, come on, like what are you doing? I mean, you have like these $1 billion TV contracts, and what's their choice? They could either like spend some more time on actually like creating graphics that work well in the broadcast, that update with the actual intervals instead of the speeds, or we could do this stupid graphic that's going to get a chortle out of like 3-year-olds or something. Like what's the difference there? So I don't know. That's where it gets to be kind of the frustrating situation, but I don't know. Thomas Williams, did I get the interview yet? Not yet. There are 2 interviews I'm working on here, but I haven't got either of them yet. I'm hoping to reel that in this week. This past week ended up being a bit crazier than I certainly had hoped it would be, but we'll find out on that end. But yeah, if you missed the pre-race, you certainly missed the right one. Track said 4 or 5 votes. Are we up on that one? I think that's where it is. Beast of Metal, is that where we are with the votes? I know it's kind of further back in here. We can just jump to tracks if you're not sure. You don't need to go over it with a microscope there, because I know it was scattered pretty far back in the chat there. But we'll jump into this and do some questions here for the show. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna get Pockrass's thing up here in the meantime. There it is. Any new tweets on this here? Chase Briscoe says Rusty, I thought I said Rudy. Rusty Rush of sponsor Rush Enterprises placed a bet on the number 14 car today that paid off 6 figures, according to Jeff Gluck, posted a minute ago. So there we go. He now said Rusty told everyone on the team he's sending them $1,000. Wow. Well, there you go. Well, that certainly paid off. I'll tell you what. I mean, our fantasy league thing, I think Last Bro and I picked Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. So this was certainly a surprising deal on this one. But yeah, lots to look at here. Yeah, no results on technical inspection yet, but kind of looking at that side of it too. Yeah, terrible broadcast talk. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do. We'll jump into the track one there. Okay. So first question here. What state hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? What state hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? I was trying to kind of summon some some Hendrick Motorsports wins today by wearing more of my Rick Hendrick kind of vest here today. Did not quite pay off, but that's the way it goes though. What state hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? I see a lot of Virginia coming up here. A lot of Virginias. And the answer is indeed Virginia. You got it. Virginia is the correct answer. Let's see here. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. How many California cities, looking for a number here, how many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? So looking for a number here. How many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? Eric Banton, that looked like you were the first one to get... Nope, Austin Foster, I think you were the first one to get Virginia on that. It's very quick on the button there. How many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? Yeah, give that one some thought. That's going to be a little bit different. That's a little bit of a challenge. As I mentioned on Twitter earlier today, I did do another video script recording for NASCAR Man, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to leave it to him to reveal the subject of the video. It's more his deal there. But I was very engaged by the script. I think it was very interesting. Another good aspect of racing history coming up in the near future. Those of you who are in the $1 level of the Lastron will be able to see it before the video goes live. So stay tuned for that as well. $1 and up, rather. So that's the way that goes. $5 and up for the patreon.com/LastCar on Brock. That gets you a bumper sticker by mail, as well as advance access to any videos that I put out on my channel, not including these live streams, of course, which are live. And the $10 level, I have some bonus videos in there, including a couple of interviews, some commentary tracks, some stuff that's bonus for the real hardcore folks out there. And that's also the level where I send one of the diecasts from my collection to you guys. So those are the available levels, and that's still on there. We're still very close to our goal of doing another starting grid video later this year. There will be any Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series race. The moment we reach that goal, I'll open a poll for Patreon members only of all levels, and you will all have a chance to vote for which race I will do a starting grid for next, and that will be up to you guys. It could be any race the rest of the season, whether it is the Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series. So that'll be the other deal on that. So lots of exciting stuff coming up here. Definitely check that out if you are interested. Okay, the question again, how many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? The answer is 4. It is 4. A lot of you got that one. 4. I believe Eric Banton, I think you were the first one on that one. 4 is correct. All right. So I guess that would be, Ontario, Riverside, Fontana, and Sonoma. I guess that would be it. I was hoping it would have like something obscure in there, but there you go. What was... Oh, wait, I think we had this one before. Okay. I think we have had this one before, but this is too fun of a question to not ask again. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Don't look it up. Don't look it up. Read the question again. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Well, LA this year. There you go. Well, see, you got a late 90s thing. This thing could not have predicted the race in the LA Coliseum, that's for sure. But yeah, you're right. That would bring it up to 5. I don't believe we've had any other ones in that time. At least not certainly not for the Cup Series. All right, we're seeing some fun answers. We're seeing some interesting answers. A car race, yeah, could potentially be. Going for the broadest possible definition, I guess. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Sin City 250, yeah, who knows? Here we go. This one is the one that was the Cactus Clash. The Cactus Clash. I think we definitely have had that one before, but I already forgot it too. I knew it was something without a number in it, but I couldn't remember what it was. The Cactus Clash, it says. Sounds like something that Speed Racer would have won. Alrighty. Terrible Broadcast 690. There you go. What was the hang on? What was the first paved track built expressly for Grand National sedans? What was the first paved track built expressly for Grand National sedans? That is our next question. Was that race broadcast? I'm not sure. That's a good question. Very good question. What was the first paved track built expressly for Grand National sedans? All right, we got Darlington, Talladega, Martinsville, New Hampshire. The question's written really strangely, and I can see how it would be confusing from one way or the other. What was the first paved track built expressly for Grand National sedans? Grand National in quotes, and the answer is Darlington, indeed, the lady in black. Darlington. Darlington, there you go. Joey Fairbanks, I think you were the first one on that. Yep, Stanton Barrett is the subject of the next Field Fillers episode. That is one of the videos that I am working on here. I'm still working on, those are pending interviews. The scripts for the next two videos that I have are done. I was finishing those up towards the end of the off season there. Kind of tweaked them a little bit since then, in between working on that and the Derek Cope book. So glad to get that JD thing handled there in the meantime, because that really freed up a lot of time on my hand to kind of try some other stuff. Alrighty, next question. What brewery sponsored the first NASCAR Winston Cup race at Ontario? What brewery sponsored the first NASCAR Winston Cup race at Ontario? Another West Coast swing question as we go back eastward again. What brewery sponsored the first Winston Cup race at Ontario? You're so excited for that? You should be. Absolutely. No, I think that'll be good. That's going to be a fun story. All right, we got Pabst, we got Miller, we got the Miller High Life, we got Coors, Killer. Oh yeah, there you go. Probably a typo there. What brewery sponsored the first NASCAR Winston Cup race at Ontario? Anheuser-Busch, okay. Black Sky Brewery in Denver, Colorado. You never know. Alrighty, and the answer is indeed Miller. It is Miller time. Rusty's Miller Time Machine. Breezy B, and you got it. Eric Banton, you got it just barely before that. But there you go. Miller is indeed the correct answer. Let's see. Yeah, let's see here. Alrighty. Next question. How many thousand feet is the backstretch at Daytona International Speedway? How many thousand feet is the backstretch at Daytona International Speedway? So I have to know, which one of you guys hacked Clint Boyer's Twitter feed? I guess I was surprised Mike Joy actually brought that up during the broadcast there, but that was interesting. That reminds me, one other thing I've been working on here lately. I went through my my comments section on the NASCAR page, there were an inordinate number of like clickbait ads and stuff that people had put in the comments. And I don't want to disable comments in there because I mean, a lot of times you guys catch like if I get a detail wrong or like there's another update on something, especially for like the entry list storylines, I think they're really handy on there. But yeah, I had to go through that, and there was like about 200 comments I think I had to delete on that. They were just drop a link things or like, you know, stuff that were clear solicitations and stuff like that. Definitely had to take that out of there because I don't want that to be distracting to other readers. But yeah, I got kind of streamlined the moderation on that a little bit. So hopefully that'll be there. But don't want to dissuade you guys. Those of you who do like posting comments on the articles, you'll still be able to here for that. So hopefully there's no changes on that. The question again, how many thousand feet is the backstretch at Daytona International Speedway? We got 3,000, 4,000, 3,700, 3,100, 8,000, 3,000, 6,000, 13,200. Okay, here we go. And the answer is indeed 3,000. 3,000 is the correct answer. Beast of Metal, you were all over it. You got that one first. Piece of Metal, there you go. Yeah, solicitation. In the context of advertising, you know, like an unwarranted, I guess it's maybe not the mot juste there, but it's like, yeah, you know, dropping the ads in there. Let's see here. Still no word from Pacris on post-race inspection. We'll see what we have on that end before the teams head back east again. Oop, hello. Let's get the next one here. Nah, not that one. Here we go. Next question. What track did ISC and Penske jointly purchase from Ralph Sanchez in 1998? What track did ISC and Penske jointly purchase from Ralph Sanchez in 1998? Hey there, Rail fan. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, we still got 45 people in here. Right on. Thank you guys for tuning in here for our trivia segment here as we wrap up the show this evening. Still waiting to hear for post-race inspection there on the status from that. So we'll hopefully have that information for you before the conclusion of the show tonight. What track did ISC and Penske jointly purchase from Ralph Sanchez in 1998? Doot, and doot. I guess this is from Michigan and Homestead and New Hampshire and Michigan and Nashville and Rockingham and Nazareth. All right, I'm going to read it one more time. What track did ISC and Penske jointly purchase from Ralph Sanchez in 1998? And the answer is Homestead. Homestead is the correct answer. That is the correct answer. Alrighty, next question. Here's a Darlington question. What starting position at Darlington has won more races than any other? Now, this is as of the late 90s, so I'm sure it's probably different now, but humor this question here. What starting position at Darlington has won more races than any other? What starting position at Darlington has won more races than any other is our question. Yeah, the Homestead one was a little surprising, I gotta say. Do do do. Do 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 do. I like the clip that Pockris has here from Tyler Reddick. Tyler's got a huge grin on his face as he usually does, but that was all he had. He said he couldn't go any further. I would have fenced it. So there you go. Well, you know, if that's all you got, that's all you got. But a fine showing there for both him and Chastain as they try to get the win there. All right, we got guesses here for first and third and 10th and 4th. We're still all over the place on the question. What starting position at Darlington has won more races than any other? The answer is indeed the pole. The pole is the correct answer. It's qualifying critical at the Darlington Raceway here. Breezy B, I think you were the first one on that one. Yeah, Nick Sanchez apparently owned Homestead at that point. Before Penske and ISC came into the picture there. So, different deal there. Next question. What year in the 60s featured the last ragtop race at Darlington? What year in the 60s featured the last ragtop race at Darlington? Doop doo doo doop 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 doo. Shout out to Garrett there. I saw your picture there from the stands. It looks like you had a great view. Checking out some of these West Coast races there. Oh, that's fantastic. Alrighty. What year in the 60s featured the final ragtop race at Darlington? Boop. Remember, Hutt almost won Darlington. Oh, that was a painful one. Man, he looked like he really had it, but the car just started overheating, and that's Darlington for you. Just brutal. Just brutal. Hutt tried so hard in so much of his career to pull off that win, but you know, from one time to another. But that was one of the last great hurrahs there for him. Okay, we got guesses for 66, 62, 64, 63, 61, 65. Alrighty. We've probably got most of the decade on here by now. What year in the 60s featured the final ragtop race at Darlington? The answer is 1962. 62 is the correct answer. Jeffrey Robertson, it looks like you were the first one on that one. Beast of Metal, you got it also. Excellent. Whoop, I skipped past this one, but I'm still going to read this one off. This is actually pretty good. What driver won the lion's share of the purse at the first race at Phoenix? So first cup race here. What driver won the lion's share of the purse for the first cup race at Phoenix? It's too good of a Phoenix question. What driver won the lion's share of the purse for the cup race at Phoenix? Do. Huh. It appears this one is incorrect. That's interesting. Okay. What driver won the lion's share of the purse at Phoenix? First Cup race. First Cup race at Phoenix. Who won the lion's share of the purse? I shouldn't have clicked past this one because I got to show you this here. And I'm checking. I am looking. I saw the answer already, so I'm going to the racing reference page to check it. And I don't think it's correct. The answer. I'm seeing answers: Ricky Rudd, Alan Koicke, of course, Koicke winning the race, Earnhardt. The answer on this one, it gave Ricky Rudd, even though he lost the engine, as was mentioned in the chat earlier tonight. But of course, Ricky Rudd blew an engine and finished back in the pack here. According to this, he actually got the 6th most share of the purse. He got $17,350. Koicke, of course, got the lion's share of it. He got $54,100. I mean, lion's share, that's the common expression of that. It would be Koicke. I mean, you would think the winner would get the biggest purse unless it was a complete upset and they didn't have like guaranteed show money or some other bonus or something along the way there. But yeah, I know Rudd had the Goodies Headache Award, I'm pretty sure, for the engine failure, but that wouldn't sway it that much. But yeah, they actually incorrectly showed Ricky Rudd on here. That's what stopped me. But it does show 17,350 here versus the 54,100 for Koicke. So I don't know what it was kind of reading from there, but there you go. Yeah, Koicke would be the correct answer factually, but the device here said Ricky Rudd. So that's bizarre. Let's see. Alrighty, next question here. What track has 18-degree banks on its turns and 12 on its front straight? What track has 18-degree banks on its turns and 12 on its front straight? Yeah, that was a weird one. It did say Ricky Rudd. I was looking at it, I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. And then I clicked past it, so I'm like, shoot. Okay. That's bizarre. I mean, we've seen a couple questions be incorrect on this before. And I'm like, okay, I had to look at the racing reference there. I'm like, okay, where are we on this? But yeah. Hopefully this will have a more straightforward answer. What track has 18-degree banks on its turns and 12 on the front straight? All right, I guess this is for Michigan, Indianapolis, Richmond, Chicagoland, California, Phoenix. Yeah, promoters bonus, inaugural race. Yeah, I mean, it'd be one thing if like maybe Quaker State sponsored the race and he got a bonus for that. Like I could maybe see that, but even then, I don't know. But according to Racing Reference, at least, even when you sort it by purse share, it's not accurate. Well, although, yeah, I mean, maybe you got a bigger share of the purse and more of Koicke's bonuses were bonuses. So I guess that could be it, but it still seems strange. What track has 18-degree banks on its turns and 12 on the front straight? The answer is Michigan. Michigan is indeed the correct answer. Eric Banton, I think you were the first one on that one. Yeah, unless it said lion's share of the laps led. I don't believe it did. I think it said lion's share of the purse. But you're right. Yeah, if he led the most laps, then yeah, that would be correct. Yeah, I mean, it'll probably circulate around again on that, but I shouldn't have clicked past that one. That was different. Oh, this is timely. Who was the first Winston Cup driver to win on Atlanta's new 1.54-mile tri-oval? Who was the first Winston Cup driver to win on Atlanta's new 1.54-mile tri-oval? First Winston Cup driver, so to be accurate. So we're talking about Atlanta, we're talking about the reconfiguration. So that's what we're going back to on this question. Who is the first Winston Cup driver to win on Atlanta's new 1.54-mile tri-oval? All right. Money came from the laps led bonus. I mean, that's possible. It's hard to say. Alrighty. I see guesses for Bobby Labonte and Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon and Keandre Miller. Yeah, I like the 1.522 also. All right, here we go. Who was the first Winston Cup driver to win on Atlanta's new 1.54-mile tri-oval? The answer is Bobby Labonte, the quad oval specialist. Bobby Labonte. There you go. See a death killer? Yep, you're all over it already. Absolutely. He did seem to just have the knack for those tracks back then for quite a while. Oh, here we go. Another one. What driver won the Atlanta 500 in 1967, 68, and 69? What driver won the Atlanta 500 in 1967, 68, and 69? Don't look it up. Try to guess. Don't look it up. Alrighty, what driver won the Atlanta 500 in 1967, 68, and 69? Starting to sink into the seat here. Got to sit back up. All right. The microphone's like over my nose. All right, here we go. What driver won the Atlanta 500 in 1967, 68, and 69? We got Pearson, we got Yarborough, we got the cameraman. Close, except the K in Keandre is pronounced like you pronounce it when reciting the alphabet. So it's Keandre. I really thought it'd be Key, but yeah. Seems like that'd be easier to shift between the K and the A. Now you have a kind of a stop. K Andre. It's like it's K Automotive Motorsports kind of thing. I don't know. Well, to each their own. What driver won the Atlanta 500 in 67, 68, and 69? The answer is Cale Yarborough. They call him Cale. Cale indeed. Alex Luft, I think you were... Nope. Austin Foster. I think you were the first one on that one. Do. Oh, people are really getting upset about Mike Joy talking about the Polish victory lap. It's like, yeah, Alan called it that himself. It's not meant to be a pejorative. It's not meant to offend anybody. Oh my goodness. People just look to be upset about anything. It's like, look, don't be, out of all the things to be critical about for these broadcasts, like I would not consider that to be one of them. Goodness me. This is where the history, like describing the history with some degree of honesty is more welcome for sure. Pacos just posted his fast thoughts on Briscoe. After this, I still don't see an official call yet. One way or the other on the technical inspections. Take a bit longer than I expected it would here for tonight. We've been closer to 2-hour shows here lately, so I guess we're getting to that point. Ooh, donuts is the subject on the food that built America. There we go. Right on. Right on, Charles. Alrighty, let's get a couple more questions here. What driver has posted the most wins at Michigan as of the late 90s? As of the late 90s here. So think like 98 thereabouts. What driver has posted the most wins, we'll say Cup Series wins, at Michigan? At Michigan. Donuts. Yes, indeed. I'm much more the cake donut person than the raised cake. I've never liked really the raised ones. That's the ones that are like croissants. Like, I mean, they look good. They always make them look really nice. But I mean, the cake donuts, like that's the one. I mean, the raised cake ones are almost an entirely different creature. Still not seeing anything on here. My goodness. Oh dear, it's raining again. Okay. What driver has posted the most wins at Michigan? The answer may surprise you. It's David Pearson. David Pearson was the correct answer, at least in the late 90s. Eric Banton, I think you got that one too, the first one. Charles Peterson Jr., you guessed it correct as well. Yeah, see, exactly. Yeah, Kowicki. Yeah, I always assumed he was from Polish, Polish descent. Well, like, I mean, just in general, people just need to lighten up. Like, come on. It's a backwards pace lap. It's one of the most enduring memories of the guy. It's something that came to be a tribute to him from other people. He wasn't, and if people need to really choose their battles. They really need to. I mean, I know that this is something I do myself. I think of it when I do these TV criticism videos. It's like, is this something I really should take on? And I really give it some thought. And those have been kind of a long time coming there. And it's like, look, I'm trying it different ways, and I'm seeing some things, and maybe we can talk about it. But I think a lot of other times people just need to really, really just calm down a little bit. My goodness. Just give everybody a little bit of latitude. Especially, the man's not here anymore. I mean, come on. That's I don't get it. Here nor there. Let's see. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver has the most Busch Series wins at Rockingham? What NASCAR Winston Cup driver has the most Busch Series wins at Rockingham? What NASCAR Winston Cup driver has the most Busch Series wins at Rockingham? Oh, Death Killer, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, some of my videos, I mean, they have kind of a different, they don't. I mean, they're not all going to be winners. I mean, not all these streams are going to be winners either. Like, some of these will be, they'll have different responses than the others. I still get. I mean, I knew when, and I mentioned this on Ultimate 23 Dragons podcast a while back. The until lap 11 video certainly has had more of a checkered response. I think I should have reworded the viewer discretion thing at the beginning to prepare people more for the language at play in there. And I think people also kind of misunderstood what the video is going to be. I mean, if I wanted to merely put like the broadcast of that race, like that's already publicly available. There's no point in making a video out of that. And NASCAR Man had already done a much better job of contextualizing that race and describing what happened in it. So I think that in it would have been redundant to do exactly the same thing as him. And ultimately that was what we talked about. So, but it clearly, and I saw some really interesting comments on the video actually just this week. Some people that they understand that, look, this was a space and time. This was a certain, people having certain anxieties about this race and maybe, trying to understand it in different ways. But then clearly, once it did get serious, people weren't goofing around at that point. If anything, there was anger, and understandably so, but a different sense. But a challenging project. I think probably of all the ones that I've put up, that one's definitely had the more checkered response, but I can't say that's been entirely surprising. So, I mean, the broadcast ones, I mean, I did see Parker Kligerman's response to that there too. And that was a little troubling because he seemed to be just restating things that a lot of other people were saying on r/NASCAR. And that was unfortunate because, again, I don't have any squabble with pit road reporters and not him in particular. In fact, in the second episode, I mean, that was kind of what my follow-up was going to be. It's like, look, I'm not talking about everybody. But I get it. It's your team. It's a team thing. And I imagine it's probably the same thing where, somebody has if they just outrageously hate, a driver and they express that. And then like maybe the crew chief steps in and says, hey man, that's my guy. What the heck are you talking about? I mean, you can't blame that response, I guess. So that's kind of been that part of it too. But what NASCAR Winston Cup driver has the most Busch Series wins at Rockingham? The answer is indeed Mark Martin. I think several of you got that one. Mark Martin is correct. Austin Foster is, I think you were the first one on that. No, Kligerman, I don't think he was out of line or anything. I saw his comment there. He was basically, I mean, a lot of people were saying that, that this was just like an attempt to just get clicks and that was taking stuff out of context and just cherry picking on it, which was not at all the intent nor factually true, which is unfortunate. That's where I think he was repeating more what other people were saying in that sense. But I get what he added to it was, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are going on. They got to juggle a lot of things at the same time, and it's not going to come out perfect all the time. And it's really busy. But again, I'm not talking about pit reporters. I understand that. I've worked the pit road, actually alongside him at the same time. I think he should know that I know that. But yeah, believing that it was just clickbait and I'm just doing this just to get attention. Yeah, for a channel that's been around since 2006, I have a backlog now of content because I was pursuing this video. That was definitely not the intent. So I was a little disappointed to it. I don't take exception to it because I understand it. I understand his perspective on it. And again, as I said when I first posted, I don't expect everyone to agree to it. But I do think, and I mentioned this also with the Until Lap 11 video, I think people misunderstand sometimes what I'm trying to do. And that's my fault. I need to make that more clear. I will accept the blame for that. If I'm not being clear with what I'm trying to do in a video, and it just confuses people, I don't blame people for being upset in that sense. So, again, the best I can do is either, rephrase it or just build onto it, which I was already planning on doing, adding more episodes and saying, here's good examples, here's bad examples, here's what worked, here's what doesn't work, here's the difference. And and I think the more of that's out there, the more you're going to have a conversation. You're going to be able to hear what people's opinions are. And I think it was important to do it at this time, even though the first episode came after Fontana, where people seem to be pretty happy with Matt Kenseth's role in the broadcast. My context of it was people seem to be universally upset at the quality of the Daytona 500 broadcast, and that puts everybody under the microscope. And I think, and Mike Joy was right to point out that there are some issues that are issues, produced from the directors or the producers, and some that are talent issues. And that, they don't have any control over the cameras. They don't have control over this. And sometimes they don't apparently have any control over the storylines. So, whoever needs to hear this information, I think it does need to be out there. I think that's the important thing. So, but that'll be clear the more of these happen. So that's gonna be a series that's gonna continue, and I'm still sampling from these Daytona broadcasts, and then I may expand onto it from other broadcasts here. And I think by doing it at the beginning of the year, I could pick out other examples from other races here and make that work out. So that's kind of what I'm looking at on that sense too. Hey, Alexandra, thank you for jumping in here as well. So we got our international contingent in here, so welcome aboard. Let's see here. Next question here. Who was first to win from the pole at North Wilkesboro since Waltrip in 1982? Who was the first to win from the pole at North Wilkesboro since Waltrip in 1982? So there's a two-pronger there. Got a couple different elements to that one. Yeah, Jenkins, Parsons, and Jarrett was the best. See, that's the thing, and that's the other part too. I don't want people to just see that and then close down and just be like, oh, well, this person's just a hater or this person's just that and all that, because that doesn't do anybody any good. And I don't think it's a mature. Frankly, I don't think it's a mature response, to it. I think, if you're a professional, you need to, one aspect of it is you need to understand how to take criticism, because you're putting yourself out there. You're in front of millions of people. They're going to have millions of different thoughts about it. You must hear this constantly. And so when instead of even chewing on the idea of it, I'm not saying you take everything at face value. It's like, oh my gosh, this person's right, I need to change immediately. It's like, no, I mean, look, there's people that think this. And maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there is. And maybe it's not, this person's role in it, but maybe they're part of it. Maybe it's something else that's going on around it. This can happen. Most, some of the past jobs I've had people that are concerned about the way the business is run or something. And, I don't take that personally and say, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, as I'm working here. It's like, no. Maybe there's something else that's like another aspect of it that I'm not privy to that maybe is affecting these other people. Maybe that's something I could bring to somebody else's attention, and it's something we could work on. And it's not about assigning blame. We can just be like, hey, look, for all I know, the director is telling these announcers to not sound enthusiastic, or maybe they're telling them to not do that when they start getting excited or something. It could be something like that. Or it's just a habit that they just can't break. I'm not going to pretend to know what it is, but if you don't acknowledge that the problem is there to begin with, it's not going to get fixed. And unfortunately, yeah, it's still there. Speaking of still there, I'm still not seeing any response on the tech inspection results here. This one's taken quite a while here. I do have an article pretty much written for Corey LaJoie, but that's, as we saw in Las Vegas, that things had changed quite a bit there. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of guesses for Terry Labonte. I see one for Jeff Bodine, Earnhardt. Let's go back into that question again here. Who was the first to win from the pole at North Wilkesboro since Waltrip? Darrell Waltrip, of course, in 1982. The first to win from the pole at North Wilkesboro since Waltrip in 82. The answer is Terry Labonte, Texas T. A lot of you got that one. Austin Foster, it's like you were first again on that one. Eric Banton, you got that one. Alessandra Benatti, Glenn 7000, Maserati 9, Jeffrey Robertson. A lot of you got that. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was, and again, the concept, again, and it's, I'm not the biggest fan of, I don't really post on Reddit that much, so it could just be a cultural issue with Reddit itself. But, again, it's, if you want to do, it's not about being stuck in a time period or anything like that. It's like, okay, yeah, probably a lot of those broadcasts back then was because of intangibles that just aren't possible now. But other parts of it are because of differences in approach, a difference in philosophy that doesn't exist now, or it's not as popular now. So that's kind of something else to look at. We can have another person that's a Benny Parsons like person. We can have another person that's a Bob Jenkins like person. And we can have another person that's a Ned Jarrett like person. It takes a clarity of purpose It takes a methodical understanding, and it takes, quite frankly, really good teamwork to really pull that off. And, some groups have had it, and other groups, even with tremendous talent, have not. And that's just the truth. And that's still the situation now. And it may be unpleasant to confront that, and it may seem daunting to know that there is still some room to grow. But that's part of it, man. That's part of it. Once you get up there, that's a cushy gig. That is a cushy gig to get up in that booth and be able to just pop off about racing for a couple hours. There are people out there who would give everything to merely have a shot at doing that. So when it is done mediocre, excuse the heck out of me when it's for noticing it. So, no, I'm not just going to bite my tongue about it. I haven't enjoyed the taste since 2007 when ESPN came back with a rather, lame production back then. And that was painful because, it was clear that Dr. Jerry Punch had the chops for it back then. But I think in that case, it absolutely was a production issue. They either weren't giving him the right group to work with, or, things just weren't quite working out well. And I certainly know it wasn't a talent problem. But something was off, and I think it's kind of guided a lot of these broadcasts since then, and it's too bad. It's really too bad. What track is found on Interstate 20 between exits 168 and 173? What track is found on Interstate 20 between exits 168 and 173? Yeah, Bob Varsha. Yeah, a lot of great talent. What would a modern Bob, Benny, and Ned be? I don't know. It's a good question. I've always felt that Brad Daugherty is kind of the closest to a modern Benny Parsons. And it's kind of a weird to think about. But remember, when he was on ESPN, he kind of did a little bit of the Buffet Benny thing about, like, the restaurants in the area. That was one thing I thought was pretty cool. I like how excited he gets. And the dude knows his stuff. Like, he grew up wearing Richard Petty's number as a basketball player. I've always been a big fan of his. I liked it when they brought him back for the SRX program last year. Probably the closest thing to Bob Jenkins probably be Alan Bestwick. I think he's incredible. He's got that radio background. He's always very knowledgeable. He keeps you invested in it, but he's not shouting at you. And it's not on and on again, off again. It's much closer to like Mike Joy's calls, where he just always talks in the same candor, and it's an enjoyable one, and it's an engaging one. Who would be an Ed Jarrett? Maybe Dale Jarrett. I mean, maybe bring a couple people from ESPN and one from NBC. I always thought what I liked with Ned Jarrett is he would catch the after effect of something. Like Benny Parsons would catch something when it happened. He had like a sixth sense for when a wreck happened. But Ned Jarrett would describe something that happened in the aftermath and be like, "Oh, this guy came down pit road," or something like that. And his would be more like a color commentator kind of remarks and all that. But again, and this is like later in his career. In his earlier career, he did a lot more of like the pit road reporting and stuff, which was a whole other part there too. But in his other years, yeah, I thought he handled that very well. So maybe somebody like maybe like DJ, like he was pretty good when they did the throwback booth thing. Kyle Petty, I don't have a problem with. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but I think Brad Daugherty and Alan Bestwick would probably be where I'd start. And then I'd try to find somebody to be the Ned Jarrett type. Maybe that's a little bit quieter than two of them. Maybe like Wally Dallenbach. Maybe I like Dallenbach too. I thought he was good at TNT. I cry for what's happened with Bill Weber. I actually never minded Bill Weber that much. I know a lot of people, kind of dump on him a lot, but I thought he was pretty good. And I like Ralph Shaheen. I like him. I mean, there's a lot of them. Right? Ralph Shaheen is much more the if he's not a pit reporter like he was for TNN, like he was a good play-by-play. Like he even described play-by-play during accidents, which is very rare. You don't get as much of that. Even Alan Bestwick sometimes not as much, but I mean, although he's pretty on the ball, so there's a lot to look at. What track is on Interstate 20 between exits 168 and 173? We got guesses for Talladega, Charlotte, Kansas, Texas. The answer is Talladega. Talladega is the correct answer. I guess it makes sense to have like a lot of different exits there. Yeah, it was great to hear Brad Daugherty back at Daytona again when he gets interviewed. This is the thing. I always forget he's a team owner. I really do. I usually think of him just in the context of his broadcasting. I don't know why that's a blind spot with me, because I mentioned that a couple times in the Field Fillers videos, especially when I'm contextualizing Thea Dixon against Michael Jordan. It's like, oh, wait a minute. What about Brad Daugherty? It's like, I forgot it again. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, it's JTG Daugherty Racing. How do you forget that? His name's in the name. But yeah, I always identify much more with his broadcasting. I mean, I thought he was fantastic. One of my favorite memories of his booth work was when AJ Allmendinger won and he got to see his car go to victory lane, and him like celebrating with Rusty Wallace. I thought that was so cool and so genuine. That was good. And that's why I like with Alan Bestwick too. What you see is what you get. The man he's got a great sense of humor about himself. And he keeps you plugged in. He's got that Ken Squire talent where you could read a phone book and you'd be riveted. You'd be waiting to hear what the next name is going to be. That's you can't teach that. Either you have that or you don't. And some of these guys just don't. So there you go. Gosh, we still don't have a call on this. Well, I don't want to keep the show here too late. We're at 6:30, just about 6:30 Pacific time here, so we're heading up to about 9:30 Eastern time. I guess here. I mean, we already got Briscoe's, you already got Pockrace's video on the first part of that there. Yeah, not sure. Wind tunnel and speed, yeah, good times. Yeah, Dave Despain is good. Dave Despain, you watch some of his old broadcasts, he did great pit reporting too. I think like the 91 500, like it's him and Mike Joy on pit road, and just outstanding. I mean, it's you could have this again. You could have this again. You could have those people are out there. It's just a matter of finding them. I mean, remember I don't know. I mean, it's you never know, where something springs up. So I think that's something else to kind of look at. Let's see. Who was the first Winston Cup driver to win at Talladega from the pole in 1971? Next question here. Who was the first Winston Cup driver to win at Talladega from the pole in 1971? Bryant Stith. Yep, exactly, Death Killer. Yeah, with Hermie Sadler at Score Motorsports. There's another one. I mean, again, this is... It always amazes me. I mean, and I talked with Lastbro about this earlier today. I mean, NASCAR, doing their diversity initiatives, and it's, I think by and large it's well-meaning, but I think that they've had some surprising blind spots about this. I liked when they brought up Jonathan Cohen with the other African American team owners that were in the Daytona 500 when you had Michael Jordan and all this other stuff too, and that was cool because Jonathan doesn't hardly get mentioned at all. But yeah, there's other ones you got to talk about. Yeah, I mean, Bryant Stith, you talk about, you have Sam Bell-Navis in 2003 with the Travis Carter effort. You talk about Thea Dixon. There's been a lot of diverse ownership in the sport's history, and I think the sport sometimes sells itself short with that. It's unfortunate, but that's another thing that kind of needs to be looked into, frankly. I mean, if they're going to do that, then, look, start using your history. Stop being afraid of it. It's not like, it was, I don't like when the sport is treats it as if like this is just a recent thing that they haven't been open to minority team ownership in the past. I think that plays into a stereotype that a lot of people have about the sport when it's just not true. It's just not true. If you didn't know any better, you think from NASCAR's perception of it that it was Wendell Scott and then it was Michael Jordan and it was nothing in between, and that's just incorrect. And I don't know, but it's a clarity of purpose, I think, that needs to be understood more. You know, but the greatest thing about NASCAR, and I always tell this to people, it's like, look, these are closed cockpit cars. When you get the suit on, the helmet on, and you're in the car, we don't know what background anybody is. Okay, it's just you go out there, you do your best, and look, who cares? Like, what your race is, what your background is, what your upbringing is, or anything like that. You go out there and if you can get in a car, especially nowadays where the next gen car is a spec car, you can literally go out there and do what Tarso Marx is doing. You go out there and, hey, I mean, if you can get it through inspection and it qualifies and you get a spot on the grid, you earn that spot. You go out there and you do the very best you can. So I don't know. But it is what it is. Who is the first NASCAR Winston Cup driver to win at Talladega from the pole in 1971? The answer is Donnie Allison. Donnie Allison is the correct answer. Maserati 9, looks like you got it. I think Glenn 7000 got it before you. Oh, and Jeffrey Robertson got it even earlier. Yeah, Death Killer. What's the dream booth? If it was like living or dead, it would be pretty much exactly the ESPN group in the early 90s. But yeah, if it was among people today, yeah, again, the starting point would probably be Bestwick and Brad Daugherty, and then I would put maybe Dale Jarrett. Maybe Jarrett over Dallenbach. It's a tough call. It's a very tough call. But yeah. And then in terms of pit road, I'd probably keep a lot of the same people. I mean, really, honestly, I mean, they're a lot of them are just ageless or interchangeable. I mean, I like Matt Yoakum. I like, just as much as the new guys coming on board. So, I put those clips in deliberately. That's a mixture of like older ones and newer ones. They fit in just fine with guys like Steve Burns or Dick Berggren or any of those guys. So, they're the ones doing the work. The engine room. Who was the only native-born Daytonan, interesting, to win a race on the beach and road course? So who is the only native-born driver from Daytona Beach to win a race on the beach and road course? So don't look it up. Try to guess that there. We're winding down towards the end of the show here, folks. I think inspection is taking entirely too long. But we'll probably wrap up here. Oh, and there it is. 5 minutes ago, Bob Bacchus tweets, Cup Tech complete, no issues. And Chase Briscoe is your winner. So there you go. So Chase Briscoe, officially winner of his first Cup Series race. Corey LaJoie, your last place finisher. Okay, so we'll probably wrap up with this tonight. So yes, we do have a call. Chase Briscoe officially the winner in Phoenix today. So we'll make this our last question for today. Who is the only native-born Daytonan to win a race on the beach and road course? Frank Mundy, Tim Flock, Fireball Roberts, Lake Speed, Paul Goldsmith, Ryan Yeoman, Fonnie Flock. Yeah, I thought for sure with them taking that long that it was going to be disqualification. I mean, we're over 2 hours after the finish of the race here, and it's interesting how that shook out. But yes, we do have a call, and there you go. Absolutely. Congratulations to Chase Briscoe. All right, last question again here. Who was the only native-born Daytonan to win a race on the beach and road course? The answer is Marshall Teague. Marshall Teague is your correct answer. Yeah, you have to drop it enough. I mean, Dave Despain here. Wind tunnel. I don't know. Only he can do that. I mean, nobody, It's like, afterwards, the broadcast with Dave Despain. He can do that. I don't know. Again, another guy. I mean, I think having a sense of humor about yourself is such a critical element. I really see that Mike Joy has that. I don't think Adam Alexander or Vince Welch. It's hard to tell. I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But there you go. But Marshall Teague is the correct answer. The only native Daytonan to win on the Daytona Beach road course. So that will do it for our show this evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and sticking around here at Behind the Wall. Our next show is going to be next Sunday after, I have no idea what we are in for in Atlanta next week, but we'll certainly talk about the action, both the Truck Series and Xfinity Series on Saturday, and of course the Cup Series and the 500 miler on Sunday to round out the weekend. So stay tuned for more updates this week on my Twitter feed at LastCarOnBrock. If you're interested in the Patreon, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And of course, the website itself is lastcar.info. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you in Atlanta for more action here. So take care, everyone. Do it, Brockapella.